that's how he's supposed to have eventually in that lifetime written the Ramayana. So again, if we superimpose the whole physical concept of simultaneous time here, it's very possible that he's written the Ramayana maybe over the course of lifetimes, or maybe in one lifetime to be interpreted later. That's absolutely open to interpretation.
Recently I read somewhere that Lord Shiva was a hunter moving around the Himalayas.
Yes.
No, Gana,
Yes. Yes.
But even if you see the
Yes.
clothes and all this thing,
Killed it hit the eye, yes. Right. Don't use, yes. But most of these astras that we speak about, most of them are very symbolic of the power of intent that is given to the person, about intending to destroy with fire, or intending to end things, or intending to, for that matter, construct things. So there's always, if you look at most epics, there's always, the interpretations are such that very often they're humanized to the local context that we live in, to a degree where sometimes they're pulled out of context. Like, for example, if you look at Mahabharata, or let's say the Ramayana, there is a certain path that's outlined in the Ramayana where the exile took place. But if you look at the local interpretations, and there are several of them spread across the country, and in most of these interpretations, there's always one particular place in every region of India where Ram is supposed to have gone through. Like, for example, even if you take Mumbai, the Banganga tank is supposed to be linked to the Ramayana. The name Banganga comes from Ban as in arrow, and Ganga as in the river, the holy river, where the party in exile is supposed to have been passing through this place, and Ram was extremely thirsty and there was no water available. And Lakshman apparently fired an arrow down to the ground, and the Ganga spouted, and that's how the Banganga was created. That's again an local attribution to the Ramayana, and we find several of these across most locations in India. They must have traveled, yes. They must have traveled, yes, but if you look at the original Ramayana, there is a certain path outlined, and we find several deviations to that path. One assumption, of course, is that perhaps the landscape was a little different and eventually it changed due to geographical reasons, or perhaps there are local interpretations. Yes. Change them, yes. Right. Yes. Yes, but past. Right. In fact, most incarnations of any kind of a god source are meant to have that purpose in life, where they change the energies of the lands that they visit in their lifetime. That's attributed to Jesus, that's attributed to Muhammad. Even the Indian attributions of Krishna or Ram are meant to have changed the energies of the people in terms of positivizing and tilting the balance towards positive as they go along and finish their purpose in life.
He named them Lord, knowing very well that they were all fables.
I guess it's about the whole journey of going from human to God source, and that's what they depict in a very clear way. Whereas if you look at the regular human journey, we perhaps don't see as many miracles, or we don't see that kind of connect with God or the ultimate power. Whereas with these fables, you find there is a clear connect in terms of them being extremely clear about what they wish to achieve in life. And that's why the symbolic label of God, not that they were physically one representation, it's just a label. Yes.
That real state.
Yes.
Then there is definitely a respect.
Yeah, in fact, that's the whole purpose of mythology, so to put it into very clear humanistic terms, but at the same time placing them on a pedestal so that you respect, you try and be like them. At the same time, you also understand that it's not some esoteric concept that's unreachable. You never know. Maybe 1,000 years later, if we read our history books, perhaps yes. Or if you look at Mother Teresa or you look at Gandhi, I'm sure there are attributes associated with it. Mm-hmm. Yes. In fact, we find so many saints and seers who've done that. Absolutely. And that's why if you look at epics, of course, are extremely exaggerated in their connotation sometimes. But you also find other stories, folklore specifically, which convey specific messages about particular attributes that we need to imbibe in a mythological sense. For example, if you look at the story of Harishchandra, who's supposed to be truth incarnate, and the sage Vishwamitra has this notion that a human being cannot be so truthful, so he decides to challenge him, and he puts him in a situation where Harishchandra is forced to forego all his wealth and his kingdom and all his power and go out on an exile with his wife and son. And the tribulations continue because he eventually, Vishwamitra not only asks for the kingdom, but 30 days after that he's also supposed to pay a certain lump sum back to the sage. So Harishchandra has no way of earning it, so eventually he sells his wife and child. The child eventually dies of a snake bite, and the wife goes to cremate, but she doesn't have money to cremate. And she's labeled as a witch in the cremation ground because people think that she's probably killed a random child. And she's also supposed to be executed even as the child is left to be cremated. And Harishchandra happens to be the one who's called to do the execution. And of course he doesn't resist it all along, so the story says, but he recognizes that it's his wife because there is a certain ornament that she wears which depicts his marriage to her, and therefore he knows that it's his wife, but he still doesn't hesitate. And that's the point where Vishwamitra is said to have acknowledged that it's going too long and he needs to stop, and eventually they're given back the whole thing. But these kind of stories are meant to drive home a certain point, like for example in this case about stick to honesty no matter what.
That is the myth.
So most of these smaller mythological stories are meant to drive home a certain point, which particularly as we teach children or initiate people into a certain way of life. These stories not only have a connect to God's source, but also give us regular day-to-day messages and values that we are meant to live with. Or for that matter, if you look at the whole concept of Atithi Devo Bhava, and the guest being greater than God, which is depicted very often in the Mahabharata. There's one instance where Yudhishthir is being coronated and Krishna is serving as the host, and he's said to have personally washed the feet of every person who comes in. And eventually his wives do the same for his poor friend Sudama, who comes to visit him later. So these stories give certain messages about the kind of values which one may live with so as to be able to meet the higher philosophical goals of existence and merging with the Godhood. But if you look at the central theme, I would say most stories in Indian mythology delve at the same point which was made right at the beginning about uniting good and bad and embracing the evil instead of rejecting it so as to be able to unite with our own selves. Eventually everything boils down to that one point where we say good and evil is in us and therefore there's nothing to reject. Yes, it's purely about accepting it so as to be able to transmute it to give us the power of transmutation, the only way is to accept. And that, I believe, is the core of Indian mythology. Yes. In fact, most of these are about delving inside, but the characters are purely about personalities within us, our own different personas. But over the years, somewhere we've possibly taken them as external stories, entertaining stories, and lost the inward track. Yes. Ganesh and Kartikeya, the whole thing about why are they brothers and how do they look at different perspectives. It's a very beautiful story. Sure. Very. Yes. Yes. It's most texts would agree that we talk of a cyclical interpretation. So that it's not so much about before and after, but it's about the same thing repeating till the time we understand it all. So yes, I mean technically if you look at it, the Matsya Avatar is meant to be the first one. Yes. But eventually, most texts do agree that after Satyug we'll come back. Yes. Okay. Right. Yes. Where there are timelines attributed, yes. However, another interpretation that goes is that we are talking of simultaneous reality and everything happened at once and everything is happening at once. So yes, we have spoken of a certain linear kind of a cycle, but simply for understanding in terms of saying that yes, one avatar was better than the other. But at the same time, there is that thing about saying that yes, Harishchandra happened even when things were evil around him. Which means there was a superimposition of Satyug on. He was testing, but the very fact that others labeled her as a witch, or the son was killed by a snake, which was again symbolic of evil, or for that matter, the fact that Vishwamitra made him go through this despite the fact that there was no fault of his. It does depict the existence of the so-called evil. Yes, it is superimposed on the other. Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely cyclical. The whole linearity is purely for understanding and telling us that yes, there is evolution that happens, which is very difficult to understand when it's purely cyclical. Yes, they do. Right. Yes. 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 But if you look at it, most of these interpretations, they also ensure that cyclical view is very much emphasized on. For example, if you look at Ram, the way he evolves, he does evolve, but then he goes back. After the exile, he goes back into the thing about denouncing Sita and being very unhappy about it, and then eventually Sita merging into the earth. There is no linear growth. It's always going back. Or for that matter, Krishna, at the end of it, he dies because of a curse. So it's not that he went straight up, he went right back. So all of these avatars, in fact, talk about Parshuram. He's considered great, but then anger is the greatest folly. Again comes back. So none of them are considered purely going straight up there. Yes. Sorry? Well, there you find, yes. But again, if you think of Ram and Krishna as the same avatar of the same particular source, then they've also been there all along. Yes. And that's again one of the cores of our belief, right? Where till the time the purpose is served, you continue to evolve and be there in the human form.